let's talk about how to write an argument research report. So a few weeks ago, you learned what ethos, pathos, and logos were, how they are used to persuade an audience to take action or to consider something. So you're considering ethos, pathos, and logos not to analyze this time, but to convince your audience about your research topic. Whatever you're arguing for or against, you're using those rhetorical appeals of persuasion now in your own writing to convince the audience. So why do we persuade? We convince somebody to either physically take action, usually very serious, very political, very important issues are more to persuade to take action. We also persuade through debate, meaning just having conversation between two people as well. So think about your argument research essay as kind of the final essay of the course that we're working with more in parts for the end of the semester. But your argument research essay must follow the format listed below. Make sure you follow my assignment guidelines, my official assignment guidelines for it as well. Make sure that you have a title page and an abstract. You definitely want to make sure you review my APA lecture on an APA title page and what an abstract is. So make sure you're clear on that and ask me good questions. You need an introduction section. Reason 1 paragraph, reason 2 paragraph, reason 3 paragraph. You need an acknowledgement paragraph. I'm calling these paragraphs, but you can do sections if you want. You can give them section titles instead. A conclusion to close everything out, and you definitely need a reference page. So make sure, again, to review my APA lecture on that. So what I'm going to do is break down each one of those sections for you to make sure that you have them. The introduction paragraph starts, your introduction, your paper starts on page 3, alright, because the abstract is page 2. So your introduction starts on page 3. If your audience is new to the topic, meaning they're unsure of the argument, they don't know what their opinion is on it, then for your introduction, you should consider writing background information again, meaning that context that you're already used to, just overall summarizing your topic. Maybe it's history, and you need some kind of attention getter to keep them focused and keep them interested. Maybe ask them a question, for example. The Norton Field Guide book gives good examples of the attention getter, and I'll put those chapters on the assignment guidelines for this. If your audience is aware of your topic and they're against your argument, they know your topic well and they are strongly against or for your argument, whatever it is, or whatever the opposite is of your argument. You still want to offer brief background on it just to keep everybody informed, because you may have that secondary audience who's learning too. But mainly for your introduction, you should discuss why this topic is important. Why should we be, quote, arguing or debating against and for this? Or maybe also include why it's part of a larger issue. Include an attention getter as well. What I mean by why it's part of a larger issue is, what is the you're talking about a subtopic to a larger discussion. You had to narrow your topic anyways, so what did you narrow it from? What larger issue is this a part of? Why is this so important? You do not need sources here, so don't include any sources in the introduction paragraph. It's just you writing from your head why why it kind of shows why this topic is so important to your audience and to you as well. So to continue with the introduction paragraph, your audience needs to know what your argument is. Meaning, are you in favor or against this topic that you're talking about? So that's why a thesis statement is very important in this paper. A thesis statement should tell them two things: what your argument is, and what your reasoning to that argument is. This should go, of course, in the introduction. So let's talk about thesis statements. These statements are a formula. They're very formulaic, especially in these types of paper. They give organization to your paper. They tie in all those reasons 1, 2, and 3 paragraphs. The reasons 1, 2, and 3 paragraphs connect to this one sentence. So it should be one sentence that combines the following information. What is your argument? And you need, remember my grading rubric, you need 3 main reasons. that will support your argument. In the topic proposal that you submitted last week, one of the questions I asked were, what are 3 main reasons to support your argument? That's why I had you draft that, so that you already have a working thesis together. So make sure to review my feedback. So the sample that I'm going to be working with in this lecture that I created just for you to kind of compare and how to connect your paper to the format. It's a very silly topic, and that's okay. Some of y'all do not have serious topics for this paper, and that's more than okay. And it's more than okay if you have a serious topic. But I wanted to choose something really random for this lecture because I don't want to overshadow, I don't want to take anybody's topic idea and use it in this lecture. Granted, I'm recording this with about half of the topic proposals graded, so I hope that nobody is talking about vampires. But hey, if you are, do not worry, do not change your topic. But here's the sample that we can kind of work with together through this lecture to hopefully help you with this paper and format. So I'm going to try to convince you about vampires. This would be my sample thesis. Vampires are an incredible species because they are nocturnal, they are immortal, and they are historical. This is a very, very simple thesis, and I'm just keeping it very simple just to explain the idea of a thesis statement in an argument paper. So this sample thesis does what I'm asking because it tells you what my argument is, that vampires are incredible. Words like incredible, best, stronger, or let's say the opposite, worst, terrible. Those words hint at what side of the argument you're trying to debate about. Or, we should do this, or sorry, I shouldn't say we. Make sure your papers are in third person. People should do this. People should not do this. Those all take action. They want the audience to take action. They want them to debate, something like that. So vampires are an incredible species because they are nocturnal, they are immortal, and they are historical. Those are my 3 main reasons that I'm going to write about only, so that I keep a focus when I write, and I don't start writing about random stuff outside of these 3 reasons. It keeps my paper and my argument very professional and focused. So I have reason 1, 2, and 3 right there. So your thesis statement should combine these 2 bullet points. So let's continue with the paper. I tried Prezi. I'm so sorry if y'all are getting a little seasick with the movement. I deeply apologize. So after your introduction section, the next paragraph, I'm going to say paragraph or section. You can write more than a paragraph for these reasons, but I'm calling them paragraphs just for it to be clear. After your introduction, you need to write about the 3 main reasons in your thesis statement. So write at least 1 paragraph for each main reason. Use topic sentences, so always make sure to look at that worksheet about topic sentences, how they are the first sentence of a paragraph to let the reader know what the paragraph is going to discuss. And you need sources now to prove these reasons. That's why this is called support. Using sources to prove a reason is support. It's support for your reasons. So let's look at my sample. In my thesis, I said vampires are an incredible species because they are nocturnal, immortal, and historical. In this paragraph, all I'm going to talk about is this first reason. That's it, because I want to keep my paper focused before I move on. So, I would only discuss why being nocturnal is beneficial. What's so good about it? What's so great? How is it going to help my argument? So I would need to start with a topic sentence in this paragraph about being nocturnal and why it connects to my argument. So this would be a sample topic sentence. Vampires are nocturnal. Maybe my audience doesn't know what that means, so I want to define it. Which means they only interact at night, and this allows for a beneficial experience. I didn't give you too much detail there, because as you read through that paragraph, as you read through that section, I'm going to explain more about why it's so beneficial. Your topic sentences are simple, but they clarify what the paragraph will be about. So what would I write about in this paragraph? I'd write about why is sleeping during the day and being up all night fun or healthy. It allows maybe for less interactions if you're an introvert. You don't have overheat, no sunburns, less traffic to deal with. You appreciate the quietness of nature, stars, or maybe more productive. Anything like that. I don't have to write about every single one of those things. but just something that I can use to convince my audience. Now remember, you need at least one source in each reason to prove why. So for this example, I would find one source to prove why being nocturnal is so great. So I did a quick little search. Granted, my sources are kind of last minute just because I wanted to do a lecture for you all on this. But I found an article from HuffPost called 7 Reasons to be Proud of Being a Night Owl. It doesn't talk about vampires, but I'm going to use that source to talk about the benefits of being a night owl to prove why vampires have it better. So that would be my source, to my evidence, my support for my reason number 1. Reason number 2, same thing. I should disregard after your introduction, but after that reason 1 paragraph, you have to write about your 3 main reasons, right? This part's going to get a little repetitive. So write at least 1 paragraph for your second reason. Use topic sentences, and again, use your source. So let's look at the sample. In my thesis, the second reason I mentioned was that vampires are incredible because they are immortal. Alright, so this paragraph would only discuss why vampires are already ahead of the game. Why are they already ahead of society by being immortal? I'd have a topic sentence about being immortal. Maybe my audience doesn't know what it is, so my topic sentence for this paragraph to start my argument off, something like, the immortality of a vampire's life, forgot the apostrophe, allows them to live forever to advance in society. Alright? That's vague, so I need to explain more in this paragraph. What opportunities? This paragraph would answer that question. Maybe they don't have to worry about aging. They would experience world changes for centuries. They would be ahead of humans. Humans, there's always that race to immortality that technology is always trying to advance in anyway. So maybe, hey, they'll be ahead of the game. I need one source to prove my credibility about why this is so important. I found a YouTube video that discusses how we humans and people in the tech industry, specifically in science, are already trying to expand life expectancy. People overall are living longer than hundreds of years ago. So I would use this YouTube video to compare how vampires are already ahead of the game, and they could teach humans something. Maybe something like that to prove, what makes this so advanced and why as well. So there's my source. Reason 3, again, we need at least 1 more paragraph for our third and last reason. You can write more reasons, but you don't want to go overboard because then it's a little too much to write about. So let's see what I talked about for reason 3. My third point in my thesis is that vampires are incredible because they're historical. So I would talk about and prove how vampires have been a part of history. Topic sentence just about being historical. Vampires are the most discussed folklore characters and have truly become historical. And my audience may not know how or why, so I need to write more about that, and that paragraph will discuss it. How have they been discussed? This paragraph would answer that question. Folklore, historical documents talking about it. There's, theories of real vampires exist, vampire figures existing. They're popular in literature with Dracula, the novel, etc. At least 1 source to prove this point. I found 2 sources for this. You need 4 sources at least total for this paper. So I found 2 sources. Found a page on a history website about vampire origins that I think would be neat to talk about their ancient history and tales. And then Minnesota Public Radio, there's an episode in I guess it's a podcast episode, or maybe just a traditional radio. Talks about the history of vampires as well. Just to kind of show you that they've been around a while, so that makes them really neat in society and all in, let's say, literature for this example. So those are my 3 main reasons, at least a paragraph for each one. Feel free to write more, of course, and you can give them section titles if you want as well. Now, we can't end the paper there because we have to be fair to the other side. We want to avoid logical fallacy. We talked about logical fallacies a few weeks ago. We need an acknowledgement section. Nothing is perfect. No argument is 100%. There will always be an opposing side to something. It may be hard to believe, but there really is always going to be someone doubting or trying to convince you that they're right, because you could be arguing against something as well. This helps you, having an acknowledgement section helps you avoid logical fallacy. So, how do we avoid logical fallacy? In this acknowledgement section, you would discuss what those who disagree with you would say. Meaning, discuss your 3 main points to your argument, just briefly bring them up again, and write about what might disprove each one of them. If somebody was against your argument and they heard your 3 main reasons, what would they say to disprove those reasons? What would their argument be about? So let's think about my example. Vampires are nocturnal. Maybe I discuss what would be missed out on during the day. Well, we miss the sun. We need the sun to survive. It's not good. We maybe would be very sleep deprived. It would be hard to get used to that system. That all, shows that my argument isn't perfect. That it's open to debate. It's open to discussion. Second viewpoint that I talked about, vampires are immortal. Well, that would be a lonely life. You would be alone without loved ones. Vampires, continue on in the world for centuries, and maybe that just gets tiring after a while. That leaves it open to debate. And vampires are historical. Discuss other historical folklore of equal importance. I would maybe discuss werewolves, ghosts. There's really interesting cultural folklore around the border region that I absolutely love to read about too. They're equally important, so why can't I write an argument about that? There's an open room for discussion with that. No sources in the acknowledgement. Just talk about what makes your argument open to debate and discussion. To conclude with your paper, think about what your purpose was. Was your purpose to convince, persuade, discuss, etc.? So let's talk about the different ways to write this conclusion depending on what your purpose is. If it's to take action, meaning you are talking about an issue that you want your audience to take action and help make change happen, your conclusion should be, it's called a call to action, where you tell your audience to consider your argument for the better of a community. Alright? If it's to persuade, meaning more to, of course the first one is to persuade as well, but what I mean by this second bullet point is if it's more just to cause discussion, you just want to have a little bit of a conversation more. Of course you can have a conversation with taking action as well, but if it's more, I guess let me word it this way, if it's a little more of a non-serious community issue, it's just something you want your audience to think about when they're done reading. Your conclusion could close on ways for opposing sides to maybe come to an agreement. That works for serious issues as well. If your topic is very pro-con, this is a great way to do that, is to, how can we come to an agreement? How can we all come together and help and make change together? That would be your more ways to cause discussion. So let's think about my topic, because I'm not really getting you all to, talk about vampires and change your life about vampires. But my topic about vampires is not a call to action. Right? I'm not trying to better a community when talking about vampires. I'm just really trying to hold discussion on a topic about mythical creatures in fantasy. My audience is probably fans who already know about vampires. Maybe they're fans of fantasy novels and stories, or just folklore in general. They find it as a hobby to learn about it. And I'm thinking about them when I'm writing this, because maybe they want to argue in favor of a different mythical creature. Mermaids are better, werewolves are better, zombies are better, things like that. So I'm just trying to convince them that I think vampires are the better of this fantasy genre. That's my focus. I think if you're stuck, ask yourself, what's my purpose? Is it to convince, persuade, or just hold conversation? And who's my audience? Yes, everyone could be your audience, but are you trying to convince the naysayers, those against it, or those who are a little unsure and they're just interested in learning more? And then in your conclusion, remember to reinstate. It's called reinstating your thesis, meaning bring that thesis statement up again to close out. And that's your conclusion. So a couple of reminders with this essay that's very important that you want to make sure you're doing. You need at least 3 main reasons that your sources will support. You need an acknowledgement section, don't skip that. Do section headings help? Meaning where you title each new part of the report something. If you use them, don't say reason number 1, reason number 2, reason number 3. It's a little too trite, it's a little too dull, so give it some kind of unique section heading title. Remember to follow the format on the assignment guidelines for APA if you are using section headings. Consider using them, but you don't have to because topic sentences help anyway. So topic sentences are more important. And this isn't too lengthy of a research paper to where you need a lot of section headings, but if you like the way it looks, it organizes your paper, by all means use it. You need at least 4 sources in this paper. You can find more, but at least 4. How you use them is up to you. Just make sure that at least 1 is used in each of your reasoning paragraphs, because you have to validate those reasons with credibility. Absolutely use APA in-text citations whenever you use a source. You will receive a 0 if I don't find any in-text citations in there, because it's a research genre. So research genres require in-text citations. Another requirement is having a reference page that lists all your sources, but remember, it's not just a list. They have to be formatted in APA, depending on the source type. So that's why you want to make sure you're clear on APA format. I have an APA template, video lecture, the Norton Field Guide, and a writer's reference has APA format sections to make sure you're formatting an article correctly, a book, a documentary, and of course asking me as well for help on that. Follow the assignment guidelines, absolutely, just reminders and required format again. Don't forget the title page and abstract. Title your paper something that's related to your topic, something unique that makes it clear what you're arguing about, what your topic is. Let's talk about primary versus secondary sources. I asked you in your topic proposals if you think you will do primary research. So just a reminder, primary research is where you are a researcher, meaning you conduct your own research through interviews and surveys. Secondary research, you find sources that have already been published. So you are not the researcher, meaning you are not the creator of those sources. They have already been published. So that can be articles, documentaries, books, podcasts, YouTube videos, etc. Anything like that. And remember to review my lecture about sources to make sure you can differentiate credible versus not credible sources. Primary research is not required. It takes more time because having to interview somebody. Also, a lot of y'all mentioned it's a little too difficult right now with quarantine. Well, with overall just people, not interacting as much. You can, if there's somebody you really want to interview and they're willing to do a phone interview, that's fine. You don't have to meet them face to face if you really want to do primary. But primary research is not required, so just keep that in mind. Regardless, you need at least 2 different types of sources. We want a variety here. And what I mean by that is if you're only doing secondary, regardless, you need at least 2 different types of sources. So, for example, maybe your first source is an article, second source is also an article, but you don't want all articles. So your third source may be a book, fourth source documentary, something like that. Or you can do article, documentary, and podcast. However you want to mix and match, as long as at least 2 are different. Okay, so let me know if that's a little confusing or if you want me to explain that further. But 4 total sources of a different variety at least. So I want to talk about primary a little bit more. If you do primary research, use the results of your research the same way you use information from the source, which is either through direct quotes or a paraphrase. So, you interview somebody, you ask them questions, maybe some of their questions help, so you want to use their answers in your paper. Use it as the same way you use it as if you find information in an article. Don't forget the APA in-text citation for primary research. You did all that work, you need to have the in-text citation. If you do primary research, it would be your last name in parentheses and the year you conducted the research. So it would be your own last name in that in-text citation because you are the researcher. Don't forget to include the primary research on the reference page. It counts as a source, so don't skip it. I have on my APA template on Blackboard, I have the format for how to include yourself as a reference for an interview or a survey you conducted. Each form of primary research counts for one source. So what I mean by that is if you do an interview, it's one source. If you do a survey too, then it's a second source. Okay? There's a website called SurveyMonkey. It's a great website for free survey templates to create an electronic survey for you to share. You can share it with your classmates. You can email it to me, and I can have your classmates help. But you can post it on social media. You can send it through emails, through Twitter, whatever you want to do. And you get the results from there and use those results in your paper. You ask questions in the survey that help support your main reasons, the same way with an interview. If you have social media, for example, Instagram, there are options to create polls for your followers on the story option. You can ask them questions, have them answer, and save those answers. That's a really modern and quick, unique way to conduct primary research. If you want to interview somebody who will boost your credibility, meaning an expert in the field related to your topic. You don't want to interview somebody who doesn't really know about the topic and doesn't have experience. It doesn't really validate your argument. A survey is different. A survey gets a group of people to think about something. That's different. Interview should be somebody who has the credibility already. For surveys or interviews, write questions and use those results in your paper, again, as a direct quote or a paraphrase whenever necessary. You don't have to use 100% of the answers. It just depends what their answers are and how you want to use it. The same way you don't use a whole entire article, you use a sentence or a paragraph to paraphrase at most. That's how you do for primary as well. Required, if you do primary, don't forget this. Attach your interview notes or your survey results at the very end of your entire paper, whether it's a screenshot or a picture or just if you wrote stuff down for the interview. Make sure to get me that, because that's your proof that you did accurate primary research. If it's missing, it will not count, so make sure you're careful with that. So if y'all have any questions, reach out to me. I'm excited to learn about what your topics are. Side note, if the reason I used vampires in this lecture is because one of the questions I asked you on the topic proposal was, what is my favorite TV show? I really love Buffy the Vampire Slayer TV show. So that's why I did vampires. Most of you all suggested The Office. That was the most popular answer. And I've never seen it, but I think I would like it. So just a little something to think about. So just for me to clarify why I brought up vampires in this lecture. You all take care.